Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Rock and Roll Confessional. I'm Rita Wild.
I am C.W. West. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for listening.
This episode is Jeff Jampol of J.A.M, Jampol Aritst Management. Part of what Jeff does is manages bands or artists that are no longer producing music, but, they have a long legacy of stuff. Some of the clients that he represents include The Doors, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, John Lee Hooker, Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, Grace Slick, the Mamas and the Papas, Charlie Parker, Henry Mancini, plus our good friend Jim Ladd, who, by the way, is alive and well on Sirius Satellite Radio, Channel 27, Deep Tracks.
Yes, he is. Jeff talks about how his company represents these legacies. He gives us the lowdown on the new cool Jim Morrison book that comes out on June 8th. Plus, he's also teased us with a new Janis Joplin scrapbook that's supposed to be coming out later this year. Plus, all the fine details of what he does representing all of these artists.
All right. Shall we get to it? Jeff has had an interesting life. You'll find out.
Here we go with our interview with Jeff Jampol.
We want to talk about what it is that you do and how you do it and about yourself, because I think one of the most important things to people with integrity is knowing and understanding legacy. And you have your own legacy now, which I think is really important to let people know what all that you do and how you handle all of that. You've had an interesting life, haven't you?
Interesting, such an interesting word, isn't it?
Yes. So how did you wind up doing what you're doing?
The most circuitous and unplanned route possible. I told a friend, fellow industryite, that if I could have planned this, I'd be a fucking genius. It was actually by accident. My past kind of is intertwined with my present. So as you requested, let's talk about it. Which is, I was a really hardcore heroin addict for a lot of years, got about as close to death as you could possibly get, or at least as far as I could possibly get. Being taken into the hospital to have my leg amputated because I had huge open abscesses in my leg. And the anesthesiologist actually stopped the surgery because my tolerance level to opiates was way too high. It said, you got to put this guy in detox for 7 to 10 days, and then we'll amputate. And during that time, they took me back in to amputate the leg. They saw some tissue growth. They did some reconstructive surgery, saved my leg.
Wow.
Back at a detox, sober, relapse, shooting up heroin right in that same leg again. With every IQ point I now possess. That was my first really hardcore, objective viewpoint of what powerlessness truly is. Anyway, long circuitous route. I finally got sober and literally had to start my life all over. I was sleeping on floors for over a year, and I would eat cookies off the back table at gatherings, and hopefully somebody would buy me a burger and find a floor to sleep on that night. And that's how it started. Now, 31 years later, recovery is a huge part of my life, and it's the foundation upon which I've built my entire life and career. I probably spend 15% of my time volunteering in treatment and counseling and intervention, and working with families and working with the teams of artists as well, who usually, without realizing it, are enabling the artist's addiction. And it really takes some expertise to guide people through it, because people don't have any idea about the disease of addiction. They don't have any idea what to do. They're being bombarded from all sides with a bunch of misinformation. And so, what I can do is kind of walk them through it, get them to the right people, the right places, the right paths of treatment, all of which I do for fun and for free. It's just my way of giving back. Yeah. And as a result of the work that I do in recovery, I had met Danny Sugarman. And Danny, had pretty famously worked for the Doors since he was about 13 years old. I certainly knew who he was. The book that he co-wrote, No One Here Gets Out Alive, was a real foundational part of my wanting to be a manager. And, I used to dream about these kind of artists. I would, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin. It's like, are you kidding me? And Danny and I just started a friendship. And really it was through recovery. And Danny had lung cancer and beat it and gotten lung cancer again. And I had actually helped start a meeting at his house so we could bring some recovery to him because he couldn't leave the house at one point. He was hooked up to all his machines. He started reaching out for some marketing advice and some deal making advice. And I would talk to him. And, it grew to the point where we were getting together every second or third weekend, Cravings on Sunset Plaza, to talk about it. And I distinctly remember sitting there going, okay, little Jeff Jampol from the Valley is sitting here on Sunset fucking Plaza talking to Danny fucking Sugarman about Jim fucking Morrison. Like, it does not get better than this.
Yeah.
How did I end up here? And that grew into a partnership in which Danny and I joined forces to manage the doors. And that's where my real path of discovery started. And the discovery, which was with a lot more bruises and contusions than I will elucidate here, was about how special and unique and different this business is. Because frankly, the business didn't exist before Danny and I started it. And my friend Wayne Kramer has a great saying. He has several great sayings, but one of the ones that really resonate with me is that he said, unfortunately, self does not reveal self to self.
That's great.
Which is why sometimes we need mentors or therapists or sponsors or a good friend. And
all of it, no matter if you're in recovery or not addicted or anything, we all need life coaches, I think. People that can assist, lend an ear and so forth.
Right. And Danny and I were coming at it from two different places. On the one hand, I suffered greatly from what I call Jackson Pollock syndrome. And every single person that I've seen try to enter this business suffers from Jackson Pollock syndrome, without exception.
And what is Jackson Pollock syndrome? Jackson
Pollock syndrome is like when you take a kid to see a Pollock painting at MoMA and you turn to the kid and you go, you could do this. And unfortunately, the chief symptom of Jackson Pollock syndrome is you don't have a fucking clue that you don't have a fucking clue. Right? And so that was me. I was sitting there looking at the doors going, I could do this, but I couldn't do it at all. I just had no clue that I couldn't do it. And I don't think that I was necessarily that much smarter or more bitchin' than the next guy. It's just I had a secret weapon, which is Danny Sugarman. And Danny became what I call the thing between my gun and my foot, and prevented me from going over the edge of the cliff a couple hundred times and kind of kept me alive until the lights started to come on. And when the lights started to come on, they came on in droves, and it just led to this whole long multi-year path of exploration and discovery. The mantra that I use at my company is that wisdom comes from good judgment. And good judgment comes from experience. And experience comes from really bad judgment. And so true. I'm probably one of the more experienced guys you'll ever talk to.
Yeah, in life issues and so forth. But going back, before you met Danny and all that kind of stuff, you were going to, I think, Sonoma State or something like that. And you had become a DJ on the radio station. And music was your passion. Music was what motivated you. Music was what made you feel less alone.
Yeah, completely. I mean, as a kid growing up in LA, in the Valley, my parents got divorced when I was about 9 or 10. And in their inimitable wisdom, they decided that I should spend a year with each of them in different cities. So I ended up going to 3 different high schools, just in case I made a friend anywhere. And I was this short, fat, non-athletic, Jewish, weirdo, loner outsider who couldn't really relate to anybody. Out by the back gate where all the cliques gathered, the only guys I really resonated with at all were the stoners. And the subset of the stoners, which was the people that were into rock and roll. And yeah, I mean, I had played guitar and bass since I was 5. I started taking classical guitar lessons, realized by age 10 that I was just never going to be that guy. But by age 8 or 9, I was a precocious kid, right? But I knew every player in every band. I knew the genealogy. I knew objectively, quantitatively, and qualitatively why Black Sabbath was better than Deep Purple. Can give you defensive arguments on both sides and discuss different albums and trajectories at lengths, and coming into my 10th year, 11th year, 12th year, that just expanded. Those guys were my sports heroes. My peers were playing Little League and reading about Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and I was reading about John Hammond and Joe Smith, and I was reading about Jerry Wexler, and I was like, I want this.
Yeah.
And I had an experience actually at the Bowie Ziggy Stardust show in 72 that literally changed the entire course of my life.
Was that the one at the
Santa Monica Pacific?
Santa Monica Pacific, yeah. It
was actually 3 Bowie shows for me in which I had major catharses at the first and the third. And, you can't really write this shit, but I'll tell you what happened, which is the first thing is that my passion and my love for rock and roll, I had been shamed for it, for whatever reason, which is completely antithetical to everything I stand for and believe in today. I had bought into the idea of authority. And so if a parent or a teacher or a grown-up said something, I just accepted it as gospel. And I used to get shamed for my love of rock and roll. And they would say, why aren't you studying Cezanne or Beethoven or Shakespeare or something worthy? I.e., what I love is not worthy. And I discovered Bowie because my older brother, who was 8 years older, was at Berkeley. And I went up to visit him when I was like 11 or 12. And he gave me this record and he said, you can't get this in the United States. Nobody knows who this guy is, but you're really going to love this. And it was the Ziggy Stardust record.
Wow.
And I remember looking at that record and that whole thing with him, like with his hand on his elbow with K West. And I was like, is that the radio station? What is this? And then turning it over, and in the upper left corner, it said to be played at maximum volume. And I thought, oh, that's so fucking cool. And I'm looking at this picture on the back cover, and he's kind of like in this Victorian era phone booth, staring up, with that orange pompadour and bottom lit by this yellow light. And I'm staring at this picture, and I'm like so attracted to this picture. And I'm like, why are you attracted to this picture? I don't know, but it's a guy. I know, but are you gay? No, I'm not gay. Then why are you so attracted? I don't know. What's going on here? I don't know. But I couldn't really play the record till I got home. And I put that record on, and I was gone. I mean, all of the alienation and the angst and the separation that I felt and the otherworldliness and the passion and the rock and roll majesty that was in those grooves was everything I loved and believed in and resonated to the very core of my soul. And that record, this became my guy, and nobody knew who this guy was.
Yeah.
And I was 12. I was in 10th grade. I was in college at 15 because I had skipped some grades and because I had convinced people that I should do that. And I knew this girl named Lulu. And Lulu was a 17-year-old blonde who was really beautiful and really abstract. So all the guys really left her alone. Nobody wanted to date her. And I was completely in love with her. But of course, I'm 12, so that's not really happening. But Lulu had a car, right? She had a brand new 72 Mercury Capri and a driver's license. And that was my key to freedom. And that was my key to rock and roll. So I became like the A&R guy for her record collection. And we would go to the record stores like, no, you're not buying that. You're buying Pretty Thing. No, put that back. You're getting Roxy music. I don't care. You're getting Roxy music for your pleasure. You're buying it. And it was like that. And so I remember going through the LA Times one day, and there was this quarter-page ad in the bottom right, and it said, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars are coming to the Santa Monica Civic. I'm like, oh, God, no fucking way. This is my guy. This is it. This is communion time. And I called Lulu, and I said, Lulu, I'm getting tickets. We're going to the show. We'll buy loose joints outside. You're driving. She's like, well, who is this guy? That doesn't matter. This is not a question. It's a statement. This is what we are doing. Okay. And I went to that show, and I went through 3 catharses during that night that literally changed the whole direction of my life. And, the Santa Monica Civic had a capacity of like 2,000, really small. And it was my rock temple. I saw Queen there open for Mott the Hoople. I saw Genesis there on the Lamb Lies Down tour. I had seen so many great artists there in this 2,000 seat venue. I saw the New York Dolls there, loudest concert of my life ever. I saw Silverhead when Michael DeBar walked on stage in his leopard skin thong leading a live tiger on a chain. And Mott the Hoople many times. Anyway, I walked into my temple, and there was 1,900 other kids there exactly like me. And
you felt at home.
Mind. Yeah. I mean, I felt like E.T.
That was your tribe.
Yeah,
I might be a weirdo freakazoid loner, but I'm not the only one. And I felt like this electric lightning bolt go through all of us simultaneously. And I was instantly bonded. I was instantly in a pack, and I wasn't alone. Mm-hmm. And then Bowie did this whole pre-concert thing, which is amazing it's a whole other story. But the curtain came up and there's Mick Ronson, right? Like platinum hair, the gold top Les Paul, and like crouched, and he's just banging out the chords to Hang On to Yourself. And I'm just like, that, dun, 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 dun. I'm losing my fucking mind. And Bowie comes out from the side of the stage and he's kind of crouching in this multicolored unitard with the orange pompadour, right? And he's like rocking back and forth and he's singing the words and they're hitting me like machine gun bullets. And it's like I realized in that moment, viscerally, palpably, that what I'm experiencing is completely valid art. So those people were all full of shit and they were completely lying to me. And so what else are they lying to me about? And then I'm never going to be that guy or that guy. I already figured that out. But I have to be as humanly close to this as possible. Fuck. I'm going to be a manager. I'm going to manage bands. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to manage bands. Done. I walked out of there with my eyes like glowing red. I never looked back. And that leads like directly to today. Mm. And then the other catharsis was during the third show I had said that I saw, which was the following year at Universal Amphitheater, which was still an outdoor amphitheater at that time.
Yep.
Hence the word amphitheater.
Hence the word amphitheater. Which they kept even
exactly.
That's rock. That's Africa, as they say. But I had waited outside a Bullock's at like 6 a.m. because I knew they had a Ticketron machine in there.
Yeah.
And they opened up the doors and I like rushed in and I got 3 tickets in the front row at Universal Amphitheater. But the way that the Universal is configured, there's this really wide stage and it's this really huge, wide proscenium. And we were all the way over on the side, which was kind of a bummer, but it's still front row. It's like, how do you get front row? And I took my 2 buddies, and of course, this is my 3rd Bowie show, so I'm like a wizened veteran. And this is no longer the Spiders. This now he's got Carlos Alomar and Earl Slick, and he's doing that whole tour, which became David Live.
Oh.
And it's still mind-blowing. And he starts singing Rock and Roll Suicide. I had to confirm this with my friend Mark, who was there with me, because it sounded too theatrical. But he was singing Rock and Roll Suicide, and he started walking over towards the other side of the stage, and he stopped, and he's looking right at me, and he holds his hand out. And I'm frozen. Like, I'm not doing shit. And thank God for my friend Mark, who knew how crazy I was about Bowie. Those guys pushed me out of my seat. Bowie grabs my hand, and he's singing, "You're Not Alone."
Oh, my God.
And then drops my hand and walks away. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God.
That was my baptism.
I got chills from that, man.
What age was that?
I was like 12, 13.
Okay.
God.
1973. 72 for Santa Monica Civic, 70 for Universal.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was it. It was over. Like, how could I possibly do anything else?
Yeah.
But to end up where I am today, managing and overseeing the clients that I do today, I mean, can you imagine? Like, I still pinch myself. I feel like the luckiest, most grateful guy you'll probably ever talk to.
And you manage dead bands, or for the most part, bands that are no longer with us.
Well,
we've never heard of before. I mean, you kind of started this. So kind of explain what you do with all of these bands and artists.
Yeah. Well, first, let me correct a little bit of a misconception. And it's partially caused by me. Because early on, when I started this company, people started calling me, like one of the trade Hits magazine called me the Tomb Raider. And people said I was the dead artist guy. And I really didn't fight that because, to a large extent, that happened to be true. But that's not really it. It's artists who are no longer active. And by that, I mean they're not creating new music and they're not touring, which many times comes through passing on. But not always. I managed Jefferson Airplane, and Yorma and Jack and Grace are still with us. And 3 of the Doors were still with us until Ray passed in 2013. Mm-hmm. So it's not about being dead. It's about being inactive. But I think that if you look at the zeitgeist of rock and roll, right, when rock and roll first started, everybody thought, okay, well, this is a passing fad. This is going to be like the hula hoop. This is going to be like, purple polka dot bikini. And, famously, I mean, Brian Epstein was handing out merch royalties for 10% for merch licensing. And wow. Elvis is doing 2 or 3 records a year. So were the Beatles. Everybody was like, let's get in on this fad. It reminds me of NFTs right now. And nobody thought that rock and roll was going to last forever. And lo and behold, it lasted. And then nobody really thought, okay, these guys are going to start like retiring and or passing on. Then what? Right. And then it becomes a completely different business. right? And an easy way to look at it, which is way oversimplified, but we don't have all day here. Good, successful managers come up knowing, I'll give them credit, 3.5 things, and being really good at 3.5 things. And the main three things are touring, tour merchandise, and radio and or streaming. With those three things, you can really control 95% plus of an artist's income. I mean, that's how, as I teach my students at UCLA, if you're a current artist, you are in the tickets and t-shirts business. That's the business you are in. Full stop. The 0.5 is a little bit of licensing and or, film and TV work, et cetera, et cetera. But when an artist becomes inactive, guess which three things we don't do anymore? Right? Now it becomes a whole new business. Sure. And it's everything but those three things. And, when I was coming up as a manager, again, with touring being the key, for whatever reason, we'll call it bad ears or bad judgment or bad taste or bad luck. But I had several successful artists, but I never had a huge touring artist. And a lot of my contemporaries that came up at the same time, guys like Bino or Jeff Quatnitz or other great managers, were making millions of dollars for their bands, making millions of dollars for themselves and flying all over the world. And I was stuck at home with my thumb up my ass, right? And so I really didn't know what to do. And I remember hanging out with a lot of these managers, and it became really apparent to me in listening to them speak, not particularly Jeff or Bino, but just generally, that they would talk about publishing and they had no idea what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. They really didn't. They knew how to spell the word, and they knew who some of the publishing companies were. But as far as the ins and outs and the inner workings of what it really means and how it works, they had no idea. And international, they had no idea. And retail merchandise, they had no idea, because, an artist like Korn will sell hundreds of thousands of dollars in t-shirts a night, and they're playing 5 nights a week. Retail wasn't really a business for these artists. And so while I was sitting home, I just decided I'm going to become an expert on publishing. I'm going to become an expert on international. I'm going to become an expert on retail, having no idea that this is the exact training you need to do what I do now. Just was lucky. It was born out of a lack of success of having, big touring bands. Now, today, this business is again completely different. It's about managing a legacy. Right. And you can use the word brand, which I really hate because it's a hoary marketing term, and as John Densmore drilled into me, we are not a deodorant or a toothpaste. Mm. We are artists. And so you can't use those same hoary brand, names like brands that you use to market toothpaste and deodorant for living, breathing art. It's important. I mean, what we manage is important, obviously artistically, but socially and politically and culturally. These are gems that need to be protected, and they need to be exposed to new generations. And we have to become experts at all kinds of different things, like regional theater and Broadway and documentaries and feature films and retail merchandise around the world in 64 different territories on 3 tiers, and books and book deals and book marketing and museum exhibits and licensing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's really what we do. We oversee all of these songs and all these recordings worldwide and in all of these different areas.
And some of the artists that you oversee, you've mentioned The Doors, right? Janis Joplin, Muddy Waters.
No, okay. I have worked. I used to work with the estate of Muddy Waters and Kurt Cobain and Tupac Shakur and Peter Tosh. None of whom we represent, but several of which we still do social media for or we help. My company is involved in producing a Tupac Shakur touring museum exhibit that should have opened last year, but will open whenever we can. We still do the social media for Peter Tosh and a couple others. The artists that we currently oversee are The Doors, as you said, and the Jim Morrison estate separately. Jim's got a major book coming out in June.
I know. Oh, it's so exciting to hear this. Can you tell us about it?
It was pretty unbelievable. The book's about 600 pages. And it's called The Collected Works of Jim Morrison. And there was a vault in Santa Barbara that was overseen by a gentleman, Corky Corson, who was Pam Corson's father.
Yeah.
And the majority of Jim's personal belongings were stored in this bank safe deposit vault and not touched or looked at for 40 years plus. God. And the Doors lawyer, John Branca, and I were talking to UCLA about, what can we do to build a Jim Morrison museum or do something with his archives. And as part of that process, we needed to get an IRS appraisal. And so the families came together, the Morrisons and the Corsons, and we were able to get access to that vault, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
You would not believe what was in there. I mean, we took a digital scanner with us, and we took cameras with us, and we scanned everything. And I remember showing it to John Densmore. It was in 5 hardbound books, and his knees buckled. I thought he was going to faint. I would say, probably a third of this book has never been seen before.
Wow.
And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of photos of his longhand writing in his journals. There was like over 25 completely filled in journals with poetry and lyrics and stories and drawings and all the master prints for Highway, his film that's never been released.
I'm sorry, was it filmed? I thought it was just written. Did he actually film it?
Highway?
Yes.
Not only did he film it in 35 millimeter.
God.
And what's the condition of it?
Pristine.
Oh my God.
Wow. That's crazy. I didn't realize that.
Wow.
Okay. In fact, I'll tell you a funny little aside, which is when I produced the Doors documentary, When You're Strange.
Mm-hmm. Great job, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It was a team effort. I produced it with Dick Wolf, and Tom DiCillo directed it. But I remember having an argument with Tom, the director, because he wanted to put a chyron in the beginning and said there are no actors or reenactments in this documentary. And I said, no. He said, but people are going to, because we were using outtakes of Highway. And those outtakes are pristine, and they're 35 millimeter, and they look like you filmed them yesterday. And he said, people are going to think that's an actor or a stand-in. I'm like, great, let them think. I love it. Let them go see the movie twice. I don't have to apologize for our work. It is what it is. And sure enough, I was at Sundance when we were premiering the film, and one of the biggest distributors got up and walked out about 9 minutes into the film.
Oh my God.
And I followed him out in the lobby. I'm like, what? And he said, and I've read some of your interviews, and you talk about authenticity and credibility and are using a stand-in for Jim Morrison. It's bullshit. I go, where? He goes, that one with him with the beard where he's skinny. I'm like, no, that's Jim. He goes, no, when he's in the Shelby, no, that's Jim. And he just looked at me, and then he walked back in.
Wow.
But those that when you see Jim in his Shelby, and when you see Jim in that tie-dye shirt, those are outtakes from Highway.
Mm.
So are the plans to release? Wow, just, like a treasure trove. Okay.
Yeah. And in there, in addition to the journals, we found 500 to 1,000 loose sheets of paper. And one of the pieces of paper was just called Plan for Book. And it laid out 4 sections and exactly what Jim wanted to do. And so we have a picture of that in the very open next to the table of contents in the book. And it's exactly what we did. Mm-hmm. We just followed Jim's plan, which made it super easy.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be out in June?
It'll be out June 8th through HarperCollins. And it's all of his poetry and lyrics. And there's many Doors songs that I'd never even heard of that he had lyrics for.
Oh my God.
And writings. And we got Tom Robbins wrote the foreword.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's really interesting. And then there's an introduction from Jim's sister, Anne, and Frank Luciandro, who worked with our editor to put the book together. And Frank was one of Jim's best friends and was there for the whole ride. And so we spent years getting this thing perfect and authentic and exactly as Jim wanted it laid out.
And isn't there some kind of audio that goes with it that of him reading some of his poetry for the first time that we've heard it?
Yes, there's going to be an audiobook. And as I'm told, Patti Smith is going to be reading part of that.
Oh my God.
And
wow.
And there will be a full, he made a recording, what we call the birthday tapes. On his 27th birthday, his last birthday here, his friends and Electra wanted to throw a big party for him. And he's like, no, he goes, I want to go do this. I want to go read some of my poetry. And so he rented a studio at Village Recorder in West LA. And he and 4 friends went down there, and they spent all evening with him reading his poetry, perfectly recorded in perfect professional conditions. And they took a break and went out to get some tacos at Lucky You and came back. And Frank Lisiandro was there, and he took photos of this whole thing. And so you're going to hear those birthday tapes in the audiobook.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
And how is it, Jeff, that none of this has been either found or touched for 40 plus years?
Well, a lot of this is before my time, but as I understood it, there was some misunderstandings or disagreements amongst the two families about who owned what and where it should be. And so I think that while they were figuring everything out, it just kind of stayed in this vault. And then people kind of knew about it, but didn't really dwell on it.
And then there was a whole thing of, well, was Pamela really Jim's wife? And when she died, why does it go to the Corsons, and so forth. So,
all right, it's time for a timeout. Is it football season, Rita? No, baseball.
Baseball season.
Baseball. Are there timeouts in baseball?
Yes, there are timeouts in basketball and hockey and in podcasts too.
Right. And this is our timeout. So our podcast relies solely on support from our listeners, like all of you, because obviously you're listening. We ask you to please make a small pledge to our podcast, as little as $1 a month. That's $12 a year. That's less than a movie. That's less than maybe 3 big gulps at 7-Eleven. Please support us by going to Patreon, Patreon, or to our website and hit the support tab. You can find that at rockandrollconfessional.rocks. And you can make a wonderful pledge there to keep us going.
With the technical equipment, the cost of putting up the show, and all
Zoom,
the work
for
that
our bank account checking that we have to pay more than what's in the bank account to cover. Really, the monthly charge is more than what I have in the bank account? Like, please. Good Lord. So.
I'm a supporter already, man.
So, Rita,
yeah.
I think an appropriate trivia question would be something about the Doors.
Doors question. It'll make this an easy one for old timers and the youngsters that, are prone to loving the Doors. And I know many of them that just still do. On the Ed Sullivan Show, that was that show that, like the Beatles appeared on, everybody appeared on Sunday nights. On the Ed Sullivan Show, what word had to be changed in the song Light My Fire because of network rules? And they all said, okay, Mr. Sullivan, we will do that.
Even Jim?
He nodded, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
We'll find out the answer after the second half. All right. Now get ready for our part 2 of our interview with Jeff Jampol.
I don't know if I ever told you this or not, but my somewhere in 7th or 8th grade, I used to be the one responsible for bringing albums to art class. So obviously I'd bring a lot of Doors stuff, and the art teacher would kind of get sick of it and kind of go, you really should go talk to the principal. And I'd like, no, I don't need to talk to a principal, No, you need to go talk to the principal. Okay. So I set up an appointment. His name is Corky Corson. Jim Corky Corson. So I'm telling him about, my passion for the Doors and just how much I love this band. And, he's trying to tell me, well, they're a really good band. And I think it was like right around Morrison Hotel or Soft Parade or something like that. I think Morrison Hotel had just come out. And he was like, they sound really good. But the thing about Jim, he's the nicest guy in the world until he drinks. And then when he drinks, you don't know. You don't know,
That's amazing. That's an amazing experience.
It was. And then I was able to buy tickets and actually go see them at the Long Beach Arena. I forget which tour it was, but I actually got to see them live.
That was early. I think that was
probably 70, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, so there was all that fighting and crazy, insane stuff.
Yeah. And so we've got that coming. We've, Janis Joplin, unbeknownst to most and certainly to us, kept 2 different scrapbooks during her life, one during her high school years, and then one from like 1966 to 68, just at her ascension. And and big, thick scrapbooks. And she put in different articles and posters and little pins and things and made highlighted notes and side entries. And so we got together with Genesis Books. They've done some of those great classic books with George Harrison and Jimmy Page and John Lennon. And we're reproducing Janis Joplin's scrapbook.
Oh, wow.
And that'll be out this year. It's a beautiful high-end. They're limiting it to 2,000 copies that are all numbered. And in fact, there's a deluxe edition, which is very expensive. I think it's like $700 or $800, which includes a signed Grace Slick piece.
Oh, wow.
And it's signed by Grace Slick and the couple guys from Big Brother and Janis's brother and sister and a couple others. And all of these people give little annotations and notes about what was going on. And it's really incredible. It's a time capsule.
Yeah. So where's that been sitting?
That's been sitting in our vault. We knew about that.
Okay.
But, we wanted to, listen, it's a really heavy yoke that we wear, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't recreate these legacies. And, one of the things I'm fond of saying to my staff in 100 different ways is, I'll poke my head in somebody's office and I'll just go, it's 11 o'clock a.m. And I'll bet you if you had espresso this morning, I'll bet you if you work really hard by 6 p.m., you could completely destroy and tear asunder what took Janis Joplin 27 years and death to build. So have a careful day.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
so true.
And, if Madonna decides to do something, the fans don't really question it. This is what Madonna wanted. When somebody's not with us, and this is something Janis Joplin is doing or Jim Morrison is doing, you can't really say what they would do. You can only say what they did.
Sure.
But I have to use every fiber in my being to ensure that it's authentic and credible and highest quality and really represents and reflects who that artist was and what that art means.
A couple of years ago, there was a beautiful play, Night with Janis, that I think that you guys were associated with. That was so fantastic.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on maybe bringing that back? I know that Pearl just is going through the 50th anniversary, and it's been reissued and so forth. So
what you're referring to is A Night with Janis Joplin, which we helped co-create, and I was a producer. And we launched that at the Portland Center Stage Theater, and then toured it across the country for 2 years before we ever took it to Broadway. And I helped cast Mary Bridget Davies, who I knew about, who was our lead actress, who actually got nominated for a Tony.
Yeah.
But that show has been touring ever since. And in fact, we were interrupted mid-tour by the pandemic. So absolutely. And we're looking at creating new productions in Japan and Australia. And there's so many areas of the U.S. that it hasn't even been to yet.
What about a film?
Funny enough, that film has been talked about on and off, and so many iterations. So I'm loath to say anything other than I think we're on the right path.
Excellent.
And I'm hoping we'll be hearing something soon.
Jeff, are you representing still the family or whoever owns the legacy? Or are you in the position of being able to make the decisions on your own?
Well, those are two disparate questions. My clients are whoever own what we call the intellectual property.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a spouse or a child. Sometimes it's a designated beneficiary. Sometimes it's a trust. Whatever it is, that would be our client. And I always refer to a standard management agreement. And there's boilerplate language in there. And it says the manager's job is to advise and counsel the client. So that's really my job, is to advise and counsel. And at the end of the day, it's their legacy.
Okay.
I at any given point of the day, I might think it's mine. But it's not, it's theirs.
Or treat it as yours.
And sometimes, I think, what happens is we established a bond of trust, which can take several years. And at that point, we know each other, we have our working rhythm, and we kind of know, when they want us to take the lead and when they want us to consult them. In the case of the Doors, and I've had this conversation with the Doors members, I was talking to one of them one time, and I just said, and they called me, and I get so many of these calls that, hey, I just heard from a friend that it was one of our songs in Sons of Anarchy. I didn't know anything about it. I said, well, that's true. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you know what? I realized that I know exactly the kind of stuff you'd want to do, and I know exactly the kind of stuff you wouldn't want to do. What are you talking about? Well, like if somebody came to us and wanted to put a song in this TV show that was about this and this. You wouldn't like that. Screw that. I would never do that. Right. That's what I just said. But if it was this, this, and this, you would be fine with that. Yeah, that's awesome. Right. So I just decided I'm just going to approve this stuff, and eventually I'll screw up, and then we're going to have to revamp this. But until then, that's what I'm doing. And they just said, okay. And so I think that's been about 15 years. But when something's, when something unique or special comes along that's outside of the norm,
sure,
then in that particular case, I call them and consult with them. And there's a lot of, voices in that group. But for the most part, no, we go over every single thing with our clients. So we give them our advice. We tell them what we think and why, and then they make the final decision.
But that's amazing amount of trust. And people get that from you, that you're not kidding. You are that fan. You said that, you understand what their legacy means and what commercialization means. There was a rock star that passed away several years ago, and I guess the families were all, fighting, and one of them wanted to put music to a cereal, and that person would have flipped out had that gone through. And so it's understanding what the product is, what the person is, and, the legacy of it. So.
Well, and sometimes I think we're in a position where we have to protect the legacy, where sometimes a beneficiary may not understand the true ethos or zeitgeist of this art. And I can only push it so far, but I can take a stand for the artist and try and explain things. But again, at the end of the day, it's not my legacy. It kind of is, but it's not. It is in my heart.
And you can also get a lot of family members involved from each group. I mean, if you break down the Doors, you've got 4 members. 2 of them have passed on. So then how far does that tree branches split off that all of a sudden you could be talking to 6, 12 people that you're going to have to make a decision with?
All the time. And it's usually, it can be artists, and it can be, again, spouses or children and trustees and executors and business managers and legal representation and litigators, all of whom have an opinion, and many of whom may not even know what they're talking about.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a little bit of corralling and wrestling and it's kind of a cultural rodeo.
Kind of like the Ramones, I guess, right? That legacy.
Yeah.
Talk about the airplane, because there's supposed to be, actually it was last year maybe, that it was supposed to be a star on the Walk of Fame.
Yeah, they were awarded a star, which is a beautiful thing. And once the star is awarded, then you have kind of 3 years to plan when you're going to present the star. And so we were deep in that, and then the pandemic hit. Yeah. So yeah, we will do that at some point. And we're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the pandemic for right now.
Okay. Is it going to be Airplane Starship or just Airplane?
Jefferson Airplane.
All right. Yes. Yeah, very good.
Have you moved the bar of expectation of how long an artist will go at this point? Can you look ahead and say, I really think instead of the Doors ending in 2000, I see them that they could go to 2050 or is it infinite at this point?
Could answer that in 3 words, which is Johann Sebastian Bach.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think this art has message, and I think art saves lives. I think it certainly saved my life, and it was my rope to sanity, and in many ways still is. And I think it's critical that the ideas and the thoughts and the things that these people wrote about and sang about and talked about be exposed to future generations. And I think the relevance is universal, and I think it's timeless.
Yeah.
How much support do you get with the record companies, and what is your involvement with the record companies? Can Rhino just out of the blue say, I want to do a Doors album? Or do they have to come to the estate and say, here's what we want to do?
That's an excellent question. And I can answer it a couple different ways. Different artists have different levels of approval rights at different labels. And so technically, some of our artists do not have approval rights. And so a publishing company or a record label can legally do whatever they want to do.
God, for infinite.
And certain of our other artists do have approval rights. In the case of the Doors have full approval rights. But one of the things that I'm most proud of is that I would say in every single case with every single one of our artists, whether they have approval rights or not, the labels and the publishers treat us as if we did. Because I think, and it took many years to gain their trust and to see the results, but a lot of them see what we can do and see how we can help and help make it a bigger, better, more wonderful thing. And sometimes it's not because you're a genius. Sometimes it's funny. I was consulting a major legacy a couple of years ago, and I said to them, I steal about $500,000 a year from you, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, well, my finger is very much on the pulse of film and TV music. And I kind of know what's out there and what series and which music supervisors and what they're planning. And I most of the time, I know when a request goes out to you. And when it does, I know it's going to disappear into a black hole of nothingness and nobody's going to get a response. So as soon as I find out about that, I come in with like, hello, I love you, or love me 2 times from the doors, because our approval and turnaround time is about 18 to 22 minutes.
Wow.
And so a lot of times that's the major thing. I mean, we help these companies move forward, but we also, I'd like to think that I can do a little bit for them what Danny Sugarman did for me, which is I can be the thing between their gun and their foot. Or sometimes I have some internal knowledge, where they're going to quote $50,000 for a commercial. And I happen to know that agency just paid 85 to someone else. And I go, wait a minute. So, we work with them as partners. The bigger issue for me is that virtually all of our partners in any medium, right, are focused exclusively on our existing fan base, who are great, for 3 reasons. One is they're there and they've always been there. Number 2, they're going to support whatever project it is we're doing. And number 3, they're excellent passers of the baton. But they're also a really not so great marketing base for 4 other distinct reasons, which is, number 1, they're tiny compared to the number of potential new fans out there. And they're making like 100 million new fans every year, potential new fans. Number 2, my existing fan base is saturated. They went to the show, they saw the concert, they got the t-shirt. Putting out some limited edition physical product of the very best of the greatest hits, volume 3, in a never before seen sequence is not my idea of cutting edge marketing.
They already own it all.
And number 4 is they're outside the main buying demographic. They're outside the mainstream of pop culture, right? And again, Danny Sugarman told me something really critical. And he said, look, I've watched this my entire life, which is you put Jim Morrison in front of kids and they will react every time. And that led to one of the most basic understandings I have of this business. And it's something that I teach my UCLA students in the first week of class, which is that any successful artist has magic and they have alchemy. And there is something that connected a 12-year-old in 1967 to Jim Morrison, or an 11-year-old in 1968 to Janis Joplin, or 78 or 88 or 98 or 08. And it's our job to figure out what that magic is and put that back in the pop culture conversation today in a way that's authentic and meaningful and credible to an 11 to 30-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're authentic and credible, the existing fans come right along with us, as long as we're authentic and credible. But that magic, right? If you think it's about the music, you're going to fail my class. Because if you think it's about the music, then by deductive logic and reasoning, you think the magic to James Dean is about his acting. No. Right. And following your logic, Pat Boone had a lot more hit singles and gold records than Jim Morrison ever did. So why are 12-year-olds not discovering Pat Boone? Mm-hmm. And P.S., go to any festival once we get those again. Go to Coachella or Bonnaroo and find some 17-year-old girl in a Clash t-shirt and ask her to name her 3 favorite songs. Or go to one of your peers who's like wearing that really hip aqua blue green Coltrane shirt and ask him what his favorite Coltrane composition is. They don't know. Because it's not about the music. She can't name 3 Clash songs. It's not about the music. It's about figuring out what that magic is. Hmm. And if you like, I can give you a sterling example of that.
Sure.
Please.
When we talk about Janis Joplin, right? So painting with a very wide brush here, there are multiple exceptions everywhere. But generally speaking, women tend to resent other women who achieve through beauty or privilege or marrying up.
Okay.
And they applaud and they support women who make it on their own. And Janis was a woman who was not objectively beautiful according to the standard of her time. She certainly never married. She grew up lower middle class in Port Arthur, Texas. And she wore her heart on her sleeve. She wanted acceptance and love and validation more than anything. She made no bones about talking about it. And yet in every interview or every little snippet, almost every single one, she talked about how, you got to stay close to your truth. Don't compromise yourself. You're all you've got. And so in not ever compromising her vision and not having those three advantages, she shattered the glass ceiling, right? She beat every boy at their own game. She took over the planet, and she is an icon of hope to women all over the world. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, my partners are sitting there going, hey, listen to this recording of Ball and Chain at Monterey. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But this.
Yeah.
And if you buy into this, then you're going to want to listen to that. Right. And if you look at some of the current artists today, I mean, I think it's critical for an artist to have an identity. Who the fuck are you? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? If you look at an artist who's fully branded in that way, like a Lady Gaga, you know what she stands for. You know what she's interested in. You know what her ideals are. And if you resonate with that, then you become interested in everything she does, whether it's a book or a movie or a TV show or a concert or a record, right? And you follow her and you become a fan of that artist. We're back in a phase now that we were in the early 60s where, it was all about these quick hit singles. It was all about the songs. When I was doing current artists, I used to tell them, dude, I don't manage songs. I manage artists. Like, have a point of view, right? And let us know what you stand for and what you're about, right? And that's what the connection is. And in the case of Lady Gaga, what I find interesting, one of the hundreds of things I find interesting, because I think she's an amazing artist and I think she's the real deal, is I think high school is a microcosm of the world. And high school has its own political systems, just like the world does. But if we look at high school, it's almost this row of concentric rings, like a dartboard. And in the very center, there's those 4 coolest, hippest kids on campus, the cool kids, right? And then they're surrounded by this ring of like 60 protectors who are cool. They're not uber cool, but they're cool. And then surrounded by a ring of 3,100 losers. Right. And all of these brands and companies and artists are always trying to like poke right into that red hot center. And Lady Gaga, she's for the losers. She's like, no, the losers, my little monsters. And if you think about it, if you're going to build an army, you want 6 soldiers or you want 3,100? It's so brilliant. But it's super brilliant because it wasn't concocted. It's just who she is.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
I was actually going to show you something, Jeff, that I had dug up because in all of my years of collecting crap, I found this license for John Lee Hooker to play in 1965. It's an agreement.
Oh, wow.
I think he's one of your clients.
He is.
And it's hard to see. And I'll actually scan this and I'll put it on our website on your page. But it was for, I think the amount of, for 1965, it's May 20th, 1965 in Stockport, England. And I believe on here it was, for 125 pounds. So right. I thought that was a cool little piece of memorabilia I dug up in my pile of stuff
That's so cool.
So yeah, like CW and I were kind of like you, like growing up, we were the outcasts. We were never that one in the middle, with the fans and the people all around us. Yeah.
But that contract brings up an interesting contrast that I think it's good to be aware of anyway, is that the concert business, the touring business really didn't evolve financially until the 80s or 90s. When we were going to shows, I remember the Rolling Stones playing the Forum in 72 and the top tickets were $7.50. It was $7.50, $5.50, and $3.50. And most of those concerts, the top tier was $7 or $8. And so if you're playing the Forum, 14,000 people, and they're paying an average of $6, how much are you going to make per night? You're going to gross $70,000, which means after expenses, you're probably going to be left with $20,000. You do 50 of those, right? And you get $1 million gross, less expenses and travel and taxes. And that's a year of touring.
And merchandising back then wasn't as big as it is now. It was very minimal.
It didn't exist. It did not. It didn't exist until the 70s.
Yeah,
for the most part. Yeah, and merch. The interesting thing to think about is that at retail, it's an apparel business. right? Retail is driven primarily by 10 to 14-year-old females who walk into a store to buy a garment to wear. Tour merch is the souvenir business.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? You're buying a souvenir to remind you of this evening you've just been a part of.
Yes.
So it's a completely different mindset, a completely different crowd, and a completely different way to market it. But yeah, that stuff didn't exist. But look at Guns N' Roses now, who publicly said, their minimum guarantee is $4 million a night. The Rolling Stones would have had a tour for years to make $4 million. And Guns N' Roses, if they're doing 4 shows a week, that's $16 million a week. So you can see how much and really what happened was, and I can't fault it because it's free market economics, but a lot of people felt that concert tickets were underpriced for a long time, that the market would bear more expensive tickets. And as they pushed it up and tried and pushed it up, lo and behold, they were correct. And I think that was first started. What started when those prices were artificially low, turned out it was below the threshold, it gave birth to the whole bootlegging business and the counterfeit tickets and
scalpers.
Ticket scalpers. Yeah. And, as we've taken the energy out of that, or the VIG, if you will, the difference, it's become harder and harder for scalpers, although they're still there. But again, as the residue, we realize, what concert tickets are actually worth. But we're getting outside of my power, Ellie, because my artists don't tour.
Right. Okay, it's time for the bonus round. So we're going to just throw some quick questions at you, Jeff. And
fascinating stuff. I mean, you must have like a legal degree or a degree in marketing or something. I mean,
no, I'm actually a college dropout.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. You know your shit, though.
Thank you. Well, again, a lot of experience.
Yeah, experience. Yeah.
So, Jeff, who would you want to meet that you've never met?
It's a two-edged sword because sometimes you just don't want to see behind the curtain. Sometimes I prefer to think of Oz as this big, scary monster, and I don't want to see a 5-foot-tall bald guy. But that being said, I want to meet Jimmy Page, and I want to meet. Oh God, there's so many. Keith Richards. And in a weird way, I think I've stayed away from some of those guys just because
shatter your illusions.
Yeah. But there's many. I have these things, these experiences that I call rock and roll moments.
Sure.
That I treasure more than any. I remember one night I was at the Grammys in New York, and it's Grammy week, and I was staying at the Riga Royal Hotel in Midtown, which is now London. And a lot of music executives were staying there, and there was a little piano bar off the lobby that held maybe 10 people. It was like 3 stools at the bar, a couch grouping, piano, fireplace. That was it. And I was coming in one night, probably around midnight, and I saw Polly Anthony, who was the president of Epic Records, who sadly passed away 2 years ago. And she was sitting there with a bunch of her people, and she waved me over and said, "Hey, come have a drink." Okay. Ordered my Diet Coke, and we're sitting there. And kind of behind my shoulder, I saw somebody walk in and quietly take the cover off the piano, and they sat down and started playing some innocuous tune. And I'm kind of looked over, and I was like, "That's Brian Wilson."
Oh my God.
Brian fucking Wilson.
Wow.
And I was like, to Polly, I'm like, and then this woman walked in, and it was Christine McVie, followed shortly by Lindsey Buckingham.
Oh my God.
Oh.
And they're standing around with Brian, and then this whole thing evolves into us calling out Beatles tunes to them, which they then play and sing. This goes on to like 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, that is excellent.
And I'm still that 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember this moment standing on stage at the Apollo. We did a big tribute to Otis Redding during Grammy Week a couple years ago. And there's this tree stump that is on the side of the stage that has a 45-degree cut in it. And this tree stump has been there since the Apollo first opened. And there's this superstition and lore that you have to rub or knock on that tree stump before you go on stage for good luck. And I'm standing there, and I'm looking at this tree stump that Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles and Diana Ross and fucking everybody had rubbed. And I'm watching on stage. The house band for that night was the Dap Kings, and we had brought in Steve Cropper and Booker T. So little Jeff from the Valley is standing there rubbing this tree trunk, watching Cropper and Booker T teach the Dap Kings how to play Hip Hugger.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, how do I get to do this?
Yeah.
I've had dozens of those.
And that's you say, it's like, the fact that you still appreciate it though, because I think a lot of people get jaded to that, but the fact that you're still that 11-year-old kid, pinch me now. Can you believe this? It's
completely.
Like, wow.
I'm never letting that kid die. I love that kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody that you would like to work with, currently, or, whose music do you really appreciate now?
Yeah. So many. Led Zeppelin, John Lennon, Bee Gees, Tom Petty. I mean, the list is endless.
How about new and upcoming acts? Yeah, I know you teach a class at UCLA, right? And it's basically just on the business aspects, or?
We teach a few different things, but the one omnibus class is called The Music Business Now, which is, I think, one of the required courses for UCLA is now offering a music industry and history degree, bachelor's.
Wow, wonderful.
But we teach them, about breaking artists in the current market. That's not really my business anymore.
Yeah. And how do you do it anymore? How do you break an artist, without like TikTok or something like that? It's, and with radio being the way it is, it's like, it doesn't even matter in the talent, that so many songs are so auto-tuned that you can't.
Well, I think that's, much of what you said is true, but instead of radio, we have streaming. And in so many cases, hopefully it's about the artist and that artist's identity. And it's everything that goes with that song, but it's being done every day. And I don't know that I personally, look, I love, it's like Frank Sinatra singing, I love my wife. Yeah. I love my life. I love my career. I love what I do.
Yeah. And you do it so well.
What band do you regret never seeing live?
Oof. Beatles, The Doors.
You didn't get to see The Doors? Wow.
Nope. No, stood outside the whiskey as a little kid waiting for my brother to come out. Probably almost every band I've ever worked with.
Yeah. That's so awesome. What is your most prized possession of memorabilia? Not just, I know you spend time on your boat and it's just wonderful for you. I can see the bliss on your face on those pictures. But of the memorabilia and stuff, what?
Probably we made Robbie Krieger worked with Gibson guitars to, he's got this beautiful 1954 Les Paul Black Beauty that's, black with these triple gold pickups that he wrote and recorded LA Woman on.
Oh my God.
And we made a limited edition of those exact replicas with all the scratches and the dents and everything. And I had Robbie sign that for me, and I got the number one series. So, and I look at some of the gold and platinum records that I have. You can't see it on the wall. I have Mama Cass's personal gold records.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I don't own, her daughter Owen owns them, but they hang here for inspiration and they're very inspirational.
God, that's cool. What was your first album you purchased?
I purchased a single of Help Me Rhonda, and then I purchased Hard Day's Night.
Would you like to do more in film?
Absolutely. It's funny because I would say right now 60 to 70% of our work is focused on film and TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been able to, the way I learned really about producing film was I just decided I was going to reach out to the best producers and try and kind of steal what they knew and have them teach me. And I always said, I'm going to bring a few things to the table that I think you need, which I was able to convince them of. And so I learned, how to produce with Dick Wolf and with Alex Gibney and a few others. And so now, Dick and I won the Grammy for best long form for the Doors documentary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I worked with Amy Berg for 6 years on the Janis documentary. So yeah, I love it. We've gotten good at it. We're involved in several projects now, and I'd love to do more.
Love your zest for life, and the fact that you appreciate it all, but you live through it all, and that appreciation comes from the fact that you were at a place that you survived. What would you say to your 19-year-old self today? Oh,
I would say a few things. One is, dude, you have this disease of addiction. It actually is a disease, and there actually is a treatment, and get a clue. And I would also say, just relax. Don't worry. Just do what you do. Right? Just do the footwork. Take care of what's in your lane. and stay the fuck out of the results. And as long as you do that, everything's going to work out fine.
Yeah, I love that.
And 90% of your worry and your fear and your agita is based on stuff that doesn't exist. There's a thing that they call the triangle of self-obsession. And the triangle of self-obsession is resentment over the past, anger at the present, and fear of the future. Right? And the past is walked in cement. It ain't going anywhere. It's not going to change no matter what you do. The future doesn't even exist yet. It's not here. And we focus on those two things, and we kind of shit all over today, which is the only thing we have is the present. So I would say, focus on the present, enjoy the moment. You're going to pass quicker than you think, and everything's going to work out just fine.
Great advice. And thank you for all the work that you do with, helping addicts and so forth. I mean, it's a cycle that, you try to break it, but you help so many people doing what you do. And thank you for never forgetting that.
That's what they say in the recovery world, that you can't keep it unless you give it away.
Yeah.
Which is the same reason that I do the teaching. I teach people how to compete with me because I love my career and I want to keep it, so I give it away.
Sounds like I want to sign up for your class, man.
Yeah.
And thank you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are the tribal drumbeat. You guys are the ones that are putting it out there. You're the ones that are keeping the spirit and the heart alive. And without you, I can't do any of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, so much. Can't wait for the new Doors book and everything else that you've got rolled up in your sleeve there, because it's everything is right down our alley, and it's some amazing stuff. And thank you for sharing your life and what you do.
And your time.
And by the way, Robbie Krieger is coming out with his book. He's never written one. It's coming out in October.
Yeah. In October. Okay, good. Yes, he said that to us. Yeah, they was going to do it.
It's going to be a very bookful year.
And you should do a book about your journey as well.
Where I'm actually more to come.
Okay.
Or if you did a movie, you could actually star in it.
There you go.
Oh God. Way to leave it on a sour note.
Now that image of Bowie holding out his hand to you, my God, I'm just going to keep that forever. That's just so beautiful.
You and me both.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jeff, so much.
Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Oh, what a inspirational guy. I just love listening to him. He's so brilliant.
I know he used a lot of big words that I got confused on.
Yeah, well,
a lot of SAT words.
And for a college dropout too. I mean, it's like, but I've been in, some business meetings with him and stuff, and it's like very impressive. He's a big guy. He's like 6'8". So, you listen to Jeff, but Jeff has something to say, which is what is great about hearing him talk and opening up today on so many things. And I just loved it very much. So thank you to Jeff for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. And also thank you to Jamie Hale for coordinating the interview, and to John Logan, who attempted to coordinate the interview over a year ago when we originally contacted Jeff, but things just got in the way and we had to reschedule. That's how popular this podcast is, folks. So please tell your friends. Get on it now. Check out Jeff's website, J.A.M, Jampol Aritst Management, at, you want to do that? www.wemanagelegends.com. And you can follow Jeff on Instagram at WeManageLegends. Twitter is at Jampol, Jampol. That's the letter J, and then another J, Ampol. Facebook is Jeffrey Jampol, because Jeff probably took that name. A different Jeff. And at Clubhouse at letter J, Jampol, Jampol. So, hey, you can go to our website to check out all of our show notes. CW pays great attention to that and marks everything down. And there you can find interesting notes on subjects that were talked about in today's show, including links to order the new Jim Morrison book. Oh my God, I can't wait to see that. I know. I think we've already ordered. Oh my God, that book is just going to be fantastic. Or there's also a Doors special limited edition graphic novel and more things coming out too. Oh, that other thing that we was talking about? Oh, Janis. But you got to listen to the show.
Yeah.
We always welcome our new listeners, and we thank you for tuning in. Please share us on social media with your favorite rock and roll friends. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter, but I'm very behind on Twitter, so just at least share us on Facebook and Instagram. All right, Reitz, it's time for the trivia question. Answer.
Ed Sullivan Show. What word had to be changed in the song Light My Fire because of network rules? So all the network people, they go to the doors and they say, look, you can't say this and you can't sing that. So you're going to have to change the word higher to something else. Girl, we can't get much higher. You can't say getting higher on primetime TV, 1960s, 70s, whatever it was.
What if she was applying for a job?
Higher?
Yeah. Could you hire her?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Spell the word. We're different.
I'm look, there's Schitt's Creek, and they can say that on TV. So for some reason, why couldn't Jim just spell it H-I-R-E?
Yeah, because it messed with the thing. And anyway, everybody agreed to do that until it went live. And then Jim just kind of looked at the camera as he was to do and just said, higher.
Higher.
Higher. And then everybody was so pissed off afterwards. It's like, you'll never play on the Ed Sullivan Show again. And Jim just said, we just did.
Yeah, I'm sure Jim was in tears.
We just did play.
And by the way, I have to apologize because Jim didn't write that. Robbie wrote that.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Robbie, if you could have changed the spelling.
Actually, better that they didn't.
Yeah, it all fits. So everyone, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Again, share us with all your friends. Tell your friends about it. And
have a wonderful week because it's springtime, everybody. And everybody should feel that little bit of like, oh, life again. You know, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and do all that fun stuff.
Enjoy the flowers. They're blooming. They're blooming in some places. There's still, I guess, some parts east of us that might not be blooming quite yet.
You're not a Walking Dead fan, are you? Yeah, because there's a line of...
I am.
Oh, you are?
Well...
Early on.
Yeah, which one?
The Walking Dead.
Which episode?
It's the one, Carol, that line. Look at the flowers.
Oh, I don't remember. I've kind of tuned out of Walking Dead.
I'm all into it, man. Fear the Walking Dead. Dead Beyond.
Actually, I like Fear the Walking Dead better because I feel like I'm more invested in the characters in Fear than I am the regular Walking Dead. In fact, last season, I didn't really watch last season. And the only reason I'm watching now, because it just irritates me because it's the same thing every season. It's like, find one location, record here. You know, this episode will be with this one character. Like every character is only on like 2 episodes. And it just kind of gets me frustrated. So I like the Daryl one that was 2 episodes ago where he ran into the girl. And,
oh, yeah. So you do watch Walking Dead. Good.
Yeah.
We're set.
But see, also, okay.
We're set for the zombie apocalypse, man. We know what to do.
Yeah, but you know it's not going to turn out that way. They're going to be like really fast runners and it's going to get all messy. But, okay, so don't you feel like to end this, somehow they have to meet up with Rick wherever, and Rick is going to be in this Oz land or something.
Yeah, where Maggie just probably came back from.
No, she'd know if Rick was there.
Maybe not.
I don't know. Maybe. But then I'm hearing all this talk about, oh no, that's not going to happen. The Rick part's not going to happen until the movie. And I'm like,
that's right.
Oh,
so it's just a Walking Dead universe. You got, the 3 shows now. And then next season will be the last of The Walking Dead. And Carol and Rick.
I thought this was the last.
Well, we're doing the part
This
now.
is the beginning of the last.
Yeah. I think next season, meaning.
And then August, they'll have like another 6 episodes or something.
Yeah, or something. That'll be like the end of it. And then we get the new Carol and what's his name? I love him.
Daryl,
yes.
What are they doing? Are they doing one?
They're doing a show. That's going to be the next thing.
It's not a motorcycle show?
I don't know what it is. I love the motorcycle show that he does. Norman Reedus.
But wait, are they doing a zombie? Are they like doing another Walking Dead?
Yeah, I think that they're just leaving and then they're going to go off to New Mexico or something. Who knows? They got it all planned out in the arcs.
Are you watching the 3rd Walking Dead?
Yeah, watching that one too. The first one. Oh, well, the first season. So the second season should be coming.
I couldn't even do that one because it's all millennials and they're all stupid anyway. And they're just going to try to text zombies.